Okay, so we are in the Azure portal and we're about to start. But before we start, I just want to say that this video is not scripted. So I might make some errors and we are going to be addressing any errors that I do make on the video. I'm going to try as much as possible not to cut out anything that does not need to be cut out. So the first thing that we are going to do is we have to create a resource group. So what the resource group is almost like a home that's going to house all of our VMs. So let's create a resource group. So you can go to the search bar and you can just type resource and you can see it here, resource groups. So click on it and then we come to create. So we can give a name to the resource group. So I just want to give this Azure Lab. Yeah, Azure Lab. So let's specify it more. Azure Lab AD. This stands for Active Directory. So after giving the name to the resource group, what we have to do next is choose the region. So you can choose whatever region that you like, but I'm going to be using Southeast Asia. I just prefer using Southeast Asia. And then just click on Review and Create. You're going to get a validation passed and then we click on Create. Great, so our resource group, as you see, our resource group has been created. So after creating the resource group, what we have to do next is we have to start creating the virtual machines that we are going to be using. So we are going to be using the Windows Server 2022. So just type virtual machine, and yes, we already have virtual machines here. Click on it. So we can create a new virtual machine. We're going to take on Azure Virtual Machine. So great. So under the resource group, we have to choose the very resource group that we created. So we're going to take the Azure Lab AD. So if you don't see this, then you probably are using maybe a different region or something. So, but you should actually see this Azure Lab AD that you created. So click on it. So let's give this virtual machine a name. So this virtual machine is going to be hosting our Windows server. So let's just say or let's just say AD server, something like that, AD server. So leave everything as it is and scroll down to, so we want to use something that is using, we want to use a computer that is using a virtual machine using two vCPUs, two virtual CPUs for added improvements, so that at least it's going to be a little bit fast when we are using them. Performance wise, it's just better to use something that has two vCPUs. Okay, so scroll down and we have to choose the username and password. Okay, I'm not finding the images. Oh, okay, image. So this is where we have to actually put the image that we want to install on this Windows server. So this is the image. We're going to be using the Windows Server 2022 data center. And what are we going to name our account? So let's just use lab user. Of course, you can use anything, and we'll put in our password. Confirm the password. Oh, doesn't match. What did I do? Okay, and let's just go to networking. Let's allow the system to create us a virtual network. Nope. Let's allow the system to create us a virtual network and a subnet. And that should be it, I think. Let's just go to review and create. Let's allow it to work its magic and hope we pass the validation. And let's see. Okay, great. So validation passed. So now we can now go on and create this virtual machine. So it does take a lot of time for it to actually settle down and deploy. So you might have to take some little time. So I'm actually going to cut the video here, and I'm going to come back when it's finished deploying. So we are back, and we have your deployment is complete. So it has deployed very, very well. Good. So let's go back to virtual machines. Now let's look at the virtual machines we just created. So this is a virtual machine that we just created, and this is the public IP address. So what we are going to do is we are going to use RDP to log in to this computer, this Windows server, using the details that the credentials that we created. So I'm just going to copy this, and let's go to start, the search bar, and you can just type remote desktop. So use remote. So remote desktop connection. Let's go to open, and here we can just paste in the public IP address of the Active Directory server and click on connect. On more choices, let's use a different account. So what was the credentials that we used? We used lab user, and the password. I can't tell you guys my password so that I don't get hacked. Click on yes. Scary enough, I use this password on some other things. Can you imagine? So great. So this is our computer that we just launched. The lab user, the details of lab user is in there. So we are in. If you did everything right, you should arrive at a screen like this. This is going to be our, let's just take no. So we have server manager. So once you see server manager, it means that you are actually in the right place. You're definitely in the right place. So it's time for us to configure this server. It's time for us to add, to install Active Directory. So if you've made it this far, let's go to add roles and features. Oh, let's give it some time. Server manager is collecting inventory data. Okay, let's allow it to load a little bit, and then we'll continue. I think it's done. Okay. Nice. We have our file and storage services. Great. So I think it's finished loading. So let's now install Active Directory. And to install Active Directory, we have to go to add roles and features. Click on next. Click on next. Click on next. So under server roles, we have to look for Active Directory domain services. So this is what we actually have to install. So click on it. And then we click on add features. And then we click on next. 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 So we can just check this box. Restart the destination server. Just in case it needs to restart on its own, then we want to allow it to do it on its own. Next, let's install. Starting installation. So it's actually going to do its thing and install Active Directory domain services. So I'm actually going to cut the video here, and I'll be back when it's done. So we are back and the installation was a success. So we can click on close. But what I want us to do is I want us to make this server the domain controller. So just click on promote this server to a domain controller. And let's run through the installation. So we'll click on add new forest because this is a new server. It is not joined to any forest, any domain. So you can give this any name you want, but I'm just going to use mydomain.com. This is a test environment, so it's okay. Whatever you want to put in here, you can. Let's click on next. Yeah, so you can put in a password here. I don't think we are going to be needing this for this lab, but for the purpose of the installation, we have to put in something here. And let's click on next. Specify the DNS. So specify the DNS. Let's uncheck this, please. I don't need to create any DNS delegation. Click on next. Let's wait to see. It's going to pick up. Okay. NetBars, name my domain. Click on next. Click on next. This is where you get to review all of the things we're clicking yes to, clicking next to. So let's click on next again and let it run the prerequisite check. And then we are going to install after the prerequisite checks have been passed. So you see all prerequisite checks have passed successfully, and then we can now install. And it might actually reboot when doing this. But before it reboots, let's just go to the virtual machine that we just created. Let's go to under networks. Let's go to network settings, and let's go to the network interface. So I want us to make the private IP address static and not uh, changing anytime the computer reboots. It's going to help us in future when we are trying to reach this server. So it's dynamic right now. We can change it to static and we can just save it. The reason we are doing this is because we are going to be using this private address as an entry to the DNS address in the Windows 10 client that we are going to be creating. So we want this server to act as the DNS. So it's not going to be good that it becomes dynamic, because if it's dynamic and if the computer or if the server goes off, then the IP address will change. And if the IP address changes, the configuration on the Windows server, on the Windows client, the Windows client is not going to be able to reach the server. It will all make sense. It will all make sense in a second. So let's go back to our installation. Is still going on. Let's just wait a little bit. It's going to reboot. Okay, you're about to be signed out. This computer has been restarted. Click on close. Click on close. On close. So it's going to actually, okay, good. It's restarting. Nice. So we're going to actually have to log back in after it has restarted. So let's go back to our virtual machines. Let's refresh. Okay, let's copy the public IP address. Copy the public IP address. Let's just try to see if we can connect. Okay, good. So right now we are actually going to log in as a domain, um, as the domain, as part of the domain. We are not going to be logging in as a normal user. Okay. So let's go to use a different account. So the way we are going to log in now is we are going to actually put in our domain name that we created, mydomain.com/. Now we're going to put in the username, and then we put in the password. And okay. Oh, something is wrong. Did I get the password wrong? Okay. I thought something had happened. So setting up group policy. So we have to just wait for a while for it to do its thing. Setting up the giving the settings, setting up the settings properly. And then we just wait for it to finish. So we are back. We are now logged in to the domain controller. So what actually gives it away that we have actually installed the Active Directory? So just go to tools, and you're going to see Active Directory and all of the modules. So this is where we are going to be creating what we call organizational units. So let's just click on Active Directory, users and computers. So we are going to be creating organizational units. So I want you to think about organizational units as departments in a company. Okay, just think about them like that. For example, we're going to create one called employees. So let's just expand my domain. So we can actually create, right click and go to new, and then you go to organizational unit. So we're going to be creating one organizational unit called employees. Employees. So it's like a department in our company. Maybe the company has employees that they are going to be, of course, maybe they are going to be recruiting some of the employees into the organization. So we are going to create like a department or organizational unit called employees. Click on OK. So we're also going to be creating one for administrators. For example, that in every company, usually in most companies, let me not say every, we have administrators, sorry, that usually maybe they hold some kind of permissions higher than every other person. So let's just click on that. Let's just put this at admins. So this is going to be the admins organizational unit or the admins department, maybe for IT people, maybe. So we have the employees and we have the admins. So now let's create a user in one of these. So let's go to, okay, we are in admins right now. I'll double click them in admins. So we can actually create, right click on the space here, and then we can click on new, and then we can go to user. This way we can actually create a new user instead of the admins group. So let's just name this user an admin. Let's just name him Jack. First name Jack T. Let's just say his name is Jack T. And the user logon name, let's say is Jack. Since he's an admin, we want to demonstrate, we don't want to mix it up, we want to make sure that he has the admin tag. Not necessarily, but just for simplicity's sake. Click on next, and the user must change the password. So I'm going to turn this off for just for this lab. Of course, in the real world, for security purposes, you probably don't want this turned off, and you probably do not want this turned off as well, because you want the password to always expire. Not always, but after a time, after an amount of time, so that they can prevent some kind of brute force or something. So let's just put the password that we want here. You can put anything, of course, that you remember. And let's put another, confirm it, and we'll take next. So when you finish, the following object will be created, the full name. Good. Nice. So under the admins group, under the admins organizational unit, we have just created a user called JackT, and we can also check, we can check to see, just right click on it and go to properties, and we're going to see who JackT is a member of. So that now JackT is just a member of the domain users group. So this is actually a built-in group, naturally built-in group, but JackT is an admin, and we don't just want JackT to have just basic domain user privileges. We want JackT to have privileges for admin, since JackT is under the admin's organizational unit or department. So you right click, of course, properties, then you go to add. This is where we are going to actually add permissions for JackT. So let's just, we want JackT to be an admin, have the permissions and privileges of an admin, not just a domain user. So we have an inbuilt group here called the domain admins. I think domain admins. It's an inbuilt group. Okay, good. Go to check names, and then you click OK. So JackT is also part of the domain admins group, which gives them administrative privileges. So click on apply and click on OK. And that's it. So we are going to log out, and we're going to sign in as JackT. I just log out. Let me just close it here. You know what? This is how we log out. Let's go to virtual machines. Okay. Let's click on the virtual machine and let's just stop it. Yep. So let's stop the virtual machine, and then we are going to start the virtual machine. Okay. The virtual machine has been stopped. Let me just refresh this to see. It hasn't stopped yet. Whenever you see this, it means that the action is actually still going on. It hasn't actually stopped yet. So when it's going to stop, you're going to restart this virtual machine, and we're going to sign in as Jack. It does take some time for it to stop the machine and come on. Okay, good. So that's stopped. And when you refresh it, you're going to see status that stopped. So we can actually, go back and we can start the virtual machine. So we can go back to the virtual machine and click on connect. So we are no longer signing in as lab user. We go to more choices, use a different account, and we are going to use the name that we created. So we go to my domain.com/wasjack_admin. Then we put in our password. And yes, Allow it to do its thing and connect. So great. So we are now logging in as Jack T, the user that we just created. What's left to do now is we want to create a virtual machine, a Windows 10 client that we are going to actually join to this domain server. So that's what I want that we do now. Okay. So let's just, okay, this is coming up. So let's just let this be. Let's just let that be, and let's go to search virtual machines. Okay, create Azure Virtual Machine. Azure Virtual Machine. Now, we are going to actually, of course, we have to create it using the resource group that we created when we were creating the server. Okay, we don't want to create a new resource group for this virtual machine. If you do that, we are going to disrupt a lot of things. This is going to be a Windows 10 client, a Win 10. It's very important that the region that you use here is the same region that you used when you were installing the server virtual machine. So on that image, we want to use Windows 10. Of course, oops, sorry, I'll check this. Of course, we want to use 2 virtual CPUs at least for performance. So let's give this our Windows 10 a username. So what are we going to name it? Let's name it John Cena. Let's put in our password. Put in our confirm our password. Okay, matches. Of course, you have to confirm this licensing. Go to next. I'll just fast forward to networking. So under virtual network, it is important that, it's very important that we have the same virtual network that we use when creating the server. We are using the same here also. We don't want to have 2 different networks because we want these 2 machines to be on the same network so they communicate together. If they are in 2, if this Windows 10 is on another VNet virtual network, then it's not going to be able to communicate with the server, the Windows server 2022 that we just created, the domain controller, if that makes sense. So we just leave the default. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that should be okay. Everything should be okay. Let's go to review and create. And allow it to do its thing. Let's see if we pass the validation. We should, if we don't have any errors, then okay, great. We just passed the validation test and now we can create. So we are going to also have to remote RDP, remote desktop into this virtual machine that we are creating. And then we are going to join this virtual machine that we are just creating to the domain controller that we just created. So we are going to allow it to do its thing, and I'm going to cut the video here and bring it back when everything is done. So the deployment is complete, and you can just go to our virtual machines and ROTP into the Windows 10. So you just copy the public IP address and oops, sorry, and this remote desktop into the Windows 10 client. More choices, use a different account. It was John, and the password was not, again, I'm not going to tell you guys my password. Wait, click yes. Nice. So what we are going to do now is we are going to try to join this Windows 10 client to the domain controller. Don't need any of this. Don't need this. Don't need this. Don't need this. Except allow it to run. And great. So we are in our Windows 10 client. Nice. So what we want to do is we want to join this Windows 10 to our, our domain that we created. So let's just right click on the start menu and go to system. Sorry, don't need that. Let's go to system. So we see Windows 10, 16 gigabytes of RAM. So let's just scroll down to rename this PC advanced. Under computer name, let's go to change. Let's go to domain. So what was the domain that we had? mydomain.com. Let's see what happens. Okay, an error appears. An Active Directory domain for this domain. Active Directory. What? An Active Directory domain controller for this domain. My domain could not be contacted. So the reason why this is happening is because we are not specified the DNS. We want the server, the domain controller. We want the IP address, the private IP address of the domain controller to be the DNS server of this our Windows 10 client. That any request that this client has, it has to forward it to the domain controller to receive the request or to receive information. So let's go back to our Windows 10 virtual machine, network settings. I actually did that on purpose, so you see that if you don't set the DNS, it's going to bring some issues. So network interface, DNS servers. So from inherit, let's go to custom, and we are going to make the server private IP address as the DNS server. I think that was 10.0.0. What was it again? Let's go back. Let me see. Let's go on CMD. Forgotten. Step IP config. Okay, 10.0.0.4. 10.0.0.4. So this is the private IP address of our domain controller, and we are making the DNS server of our Windows 10 client. So click on save. I'll wait for it to save. We may actually have to restart the Windows 10 client for this to take into effect. I think so. So it's saved. Let's go back to Windows 10 and let's see if it's been affected here. Let's see CMD. IP config slash let's see the DNS. So the DNS server is still is sending DNS requests to the public. So we'll have to restart this. Let's just go back to our machine, our virtual machines, and let's stop the server and then let's restart it all over again. Let's stop this Windows 10 client, sorry, not the server. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always ask them in the comments. This is unscripted. I do have a project on GitHub where I actually go through it more in a more sequential order. So I'm going to be pasting that actually in the comments or in the description. So let's start it over again. Start the server. Why do I keep saying server? Let's start the Windows 10 client. And then we'll try to log in. Let's log in. Yeah, it was John, I think. In the password. Let's connect. Okay. By the way, if you're using Mac, you actually have to download an app for this. Mac users have to download an app for this. Windows users have this inbuilt. I'm not a Mac user, so but if you're a Mac user, I think in your Play Store or whatever you guys use, it should be there. You should have an ROTP app to help you connect. So we are in. Let's try that one more time. So let's try to join this Windows 10 client to the domain. So we're going to right click on the start menu, system. I hope it works this time. It should if we did everything correctly. So let's scroll down to rename this PC. Change domain. Let's put in the domain. And let's click OK. Let's see what happens. Oh, nice. So we have enter the domain, enter the name and password of an account with permission to join the domain. So if you remember some few minutes back, we made this guy we made this guy was it John? It was Jack. We made Jack an admin. So they do have privileges to log in as an administrator to this domain. I think that it should work. I think so. Okay, good. It says welcome to mydomain.com domain. So it was successful. I think it might need to reboot. Yes, it has to reboot. You must restart your computer to apply these changes. Before restarting, like okay, let's just take OK and let's close and let's restart now. So it's going to restart and we should be good. Okay, let's go to more choices. Let's use a different account. So we're going to be logging into this Windows 10 client using the admin credentials. Sorry, it was Jack /admin. The administrator, password. That should be okay. Great, worked. So we are now logging in to the Windows 10 client, which is part of the domain. So we are back. We are just logged in. So let's just do some checks. Let's right click and go to system. And we can see that the device name, the full device name now is windows10.mydomain.com. So we have just joined this Windows 10 PC to that domain that we created. So let's just go back to the domain, to our server, our domain controller, and let's see what's happening there. Cancel this. Let's go to tools. Let's go to Active Directory, users and computers. Let's see what's happening in there. Let's expand my domain and computers. So under computers, we can see Windows 10. So we have just joined Windows 10 to this domain controller. Okay. So right now, let's actually head back to the Windows 10 and let's do some settings. So this Windows 10 needs that we give some permissions to RDP. For example, we want everybody that is a user of this domain to be able to have access to this domain, to be able to RDP into this computer. The reason we are doing this is because if we just leave it like this, then if we have new users that we create, they will not be able to gain access into the system. They'll not be able to gain access into this Windows 10 client. For example, there are other users. Let's say, for example, we created a user came into the computer, a client came. Now we have a new client. Let's say their name is maybe Chris, and Chris has to use this PC. And Chris will not be able to log into this PC if Chris is not a member of, if Chris is not allowed as a member of this domain to RDP into it. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. So let's just go to remote desktop. Scroll down to select users that can remotely access this PC. So right now it's blank. Let's go to add. So here we can look for an inbuilt group of users or groups that can actually RDP into this PC and actually use it. So we have domain users as a default group. So let's just go to check names and we'll see domain users here. So domain users means that everybody that is a user of this domain can RDP into this computer. So if tomorrow somebody is not, someone does not have domain privileges, somebody is not in this domain, they cannot access this computer. So just click on OK. Okay. So that's it.